Afghanistan at the start of 2009. 8 years ago, few people, least of all Afghans, would have expected to see international troops still patrolling the outskirts of the capital. All the more so, as officially responsibility for security was handed to the Afghan National Forces in 2008. Where, many people demand to know, was the promised peace dividend, the security and space for reconstruction? NATO would be the first to admit that expectations of swift success have yet to be met. It admits to being caught in a stalemate against insurgents in southern Afghanistan. But armies are nothing if not adaptable to new challenges. In Afghanistan, there's too much at stake for 21st century security for them not to be. And here NATO has proved its credentials as the only alliance capable of delivering that, despite its critics. It's fulfilling a comprehensive agenda of interlinked tasks with Afghan and international partners to build lasting change in Afghanistan, change in security, in governance, in economic prospects, change for good.
We know that we have a major enemy infiltration route in Wazir Valley in Kogyani district. 2 weeks ago, the Special Troops Battalion...
In a military camp in the eastern Afghan city of Jalalabad, the commander in charge briefs his sergeant on plans for a humanitarian drop the following day.
The villagers expressed some fear that they would suffer some reprisals from the Taliban, and were not willing at that point to lend their support.
Their destination is Kogyani, a village in an area of rising threat to the foreign forces in Afghanistan and to the Afghans they're grooming to succeed them.
And some clothing items in order to gain their support for the emplacement of these observation posts, which we want to put in Wazir village.
Kogyani has seen plenty of frontline action recently. A firefight between insurgents and Afghan forces last year left several people dead and the district centre peppered with bullet holes.
We use non-lethal methods to engage the local population. Our methodology basically involves working with the elders and the shuras in the area, trying to gain their support so that they can influence the people of their districts in a positive way to accept the three-pronged approach that we have for increased legitimacy of the government, also security and also economic help.
Hundreds of bags of rice, blankets and warm clothes are offloaded to be distributed to people waiting patiently outside. They live at subsistence level in an area of higher than usual unemployment. With their daily concerns, there's little welcome here apparently for insurgents.
The Afghans as a whole, and then the Pashtuns in particular, they are not in support of foreigners, whether they are local foreigners or they are coming from other countries. What they value so much is that who is doing what for them. As far as the insurgents and Taliban issue is concerned, I don't think these communities like them as a whole. But sometimes when there is no international support to these people and they are needy and they do not have jobs and they do not have that much resources in their own areas, they automatically become under their influence. But if the international community can manage to reach the assistance to these people, even if they are in the mountains, then the security issue becomes resolved automatically.
Which is why the American forces and their coalition partners in Nangarhar province are reaching out so strenuously. Local leaders describe the threat they face.
خپل دغه وطن د ټول افغانانو مسؤلیت هم دادی چې مونږ د خپل وطن د خپل قوم د خپل ولس د خپل قریه د خپل منطقي امنیت مونږ په خپل وساتو مونږ ملي اردو ملي پولیس باید تقویه شي ترڅو چې مونږ خپل حکومت په پښو ودرېږي مونږ امنیت راوستلی شو هغه خلک چې د بلې خوا نه راځي فرض کړه هغلته تقریبا څومره کیلومتره سرحد مونږ لرو دغه خلک چې راوړي نور بیا خپله مونږ په منطقه کې دا خلک نشته خرابکار خلک نشته چې هغه ورانکاري کوي تخریبکاري کوي د پاکستان نه فرض کړه راوړي هغوی ساریږي نه مقصد چرچه وکړي نور تښتي بیرته.
Colonel Fitch's trip is as much about sending reassuring signals to people innately cautious towards foreigners as it is about humanitarian aid. This is one of the many faces of NATO in Afghanistan, listening to local people, understanding their needs, helping them to shape a future that they alone know.
کچیرته په دغه منطقه کې چې ټول خلک ځوانان بیکاره بې سرنوشته دي د دوی لپاره فابریکې پیدا جوړې شي کارونه پیدا شي هغه خلک په کارونو باندې مصروف شي هیڅ مشکل نه پیدا کیږي دا ټول چې کیږي د غریبۍ د وجه نه د بیکارۍ د وجه نه کیږي.
Many elders are reluctant to acknowledge the presence of insurgent forces in their villages, but in the east, close to many of the radicalized tribal areas of Pakistan, local people know well their methods of operating. This is an account from one villager who asked that his identity not be disclosed. He started by speaking about the threatening notes left by insurgents, known as night letters.
They are saying that don't join the Afghan National Army, don't go to Afghan National Police, don't join with them, so don't help Afghan government, don't work for the coalitions, you know. Yeah, it's threat, and even they killed some of those kind of the people. But they don't want our freedom. Taliban, they are paying about 12,000 rupees per month to each insurgent guy. You know that the Afghan people, they are very poor. Most of our people, they are non-educated people. We have no good work to get money, how to feed the kids, how to feed the families. So some of our guys, they can come under their pressure because they can get money. It's their mission, they should do it.
The spread of Taliban attacks and influence in remote areas tell a story which has prompted doom-laden apocalyptic news coverage about NATO's success level and the prospects for victory. ISAF rejects such talk out of hand. Nonetheless, its commanders do acknowledge the areas where troop deployments are thin and have resolved to fix that. Firstly, with 17,000 extra American forces.
I don't see this as a surge. It's going to be a sustained commitment of additional security capabilities for the next number of years. How many years that is, I can't say with any definitive answer, but I believe that at least for the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have a sustained commitment of international security forces in Afghanistan.
Hundreds of armoured vehicles await their arrival in Kandahar, where many will be based. By far the biggest threat faced by troops are IEDs, or improvised explosive devices, often placed on the side of the road. These vehicles are tough enough and equipped with bomb deactivating technology to withstand most explosions.
First of all, the insurgency, as we see it, is primarily a localized, and sometimes regionalized, rural-based insurgency. So there are areas of Afghanistan where we need to project a security presence with our Afghan partners, with the Afghan army and Afghan police. And that's been our strategy. Our strategy is to focus on population, protecting the population, and defeating insurgent groups. So we will go to wherever we need to be able to do that. We won't be fixed in certain areas.
So who are the insurgent groups in Afghanistan? What are their capacities and structures beyond the impressions they feed out in their propaganda videos? Recently, the Taliban and other armed opposition groups have professionalized their operations, evolving into a sort of complex in which ideological and political mission, criminal and financial alliances at home and abroad, weapons procurement and recruitment, and some support from near neighbours all play a role.
They operate in very small groups, they know the terrain very well, they hide amongst the population, they use all the tricks that they can to make life difficult for us, and so it's a very cunning enemy.
There's ideology, fundamental religion, I suppose the same thing in a way. There's economic and criminal. The narco traffickers, the narco terrorists. Quite a number of the people who we end up fighting are not hugely committed insurgents. They're on the payroll. And if we can provide them with other forms of employment, other jobs, other ways of making money, then they will cease to be insurgents really quite quickly.
Just ask Harib Hussain, a 24-year-old soldier in the Afghan National Army who came face to face with the Taliban in Zabul province.
لوای دوستم کانرگ سه ولایت زابل ورسوالشون که وظیفه ماست در قطار آماده بودیم وظیفه قماندان لوام آمدن کانرگ وظیفه آماده بودیم امنیتی سر در امنیتی بالا میشتیم سر تپه فهمون 2 نفر بودیم یک ما بودیم یک بچه دیگه بود بنده خدا شهید شد سر تپه بالا شدیم ما خبر نداشتیم من بخار بالا شدیم سر تپه گفتیم کسی نیست زمستان است برف است خوشی احساس میکنم دیگه متاسف هستیم که اندوال ما دست ما رفتن خود دیگه چیز قسمت باشن دیگه خود ما.
An ambulance arrives at the new Afghan National Army Regional Command Center Hospital in Kandahar. It serves the 205 ANA Corps, but right now is treating Abdul Hadi, a police officer who wasn't so lucky in his escape from the Taliban. He and several police colleagues were confronted by insurgents in Panjwai district, not far from Kandahar. The bullet he took injured a kidney, his liver and his backbone. He'll never walk again. His treatment demonstrates the growing capacities of the ANA to provide battlefield care for the security forces. International forces are helping them achieve that through a variety of skills building and mentoring programs. There's still a way to go, but Afghanistan never had such facilities.
The shortage of the personnel, especially for this area, in hospital, in the garrison clinics, in the fields, in the the big problem for this area, the shortage of the medical personnel, especially doctors.
The Afghan National Army now numbers more than 80,000, a staggering feat of growth from zero in 2001. By 2013, it'll be more than 130,000. The army is a representation of the hopes and aspirations of the state, multi-ethnic and continually increasing in competences and equipment levels. A recent survey of Afghans showed the vast majority have confidence in the capability of the army, but that they're not yet ready to secure their country on their own.
They know the trade, they know the language, they know the Afghan traditions, and they know the enemy better. And historically, the Afghans, if they are trained properly and they are equipped properly, they are second to no soldiers in the world.
They're driven too by higher than average wages and by the idea of serving their country's future defense needs.
زپاوش د زما کم 2.5 کاله برابرې کې زپاوش د پدې رالم چې زموږ افغانستان د خلکو ارزو او امید چې موږ افغانستان او جاپان په ورځ آباد شوي نو ولې موږ احتیاجي محتاجي زموږ خلکو موږ په خلکو احتیاجي محتاجي د در بدر یو کونډې رنډې شهیدانو یتیمان هم پاتې دي او جاپان مخ په ترقۍ لاړل نو موږ دا غواړو چې زموږ حکومت خپل داس خپل امنیت راشي دغه راشي موږ خپل حکومت جوړ شي خو د امنیت راولي صلح راولي
اردوی ملی وقتی میتواند که خارجی با او همکار باشه اسلحه بده تانک بده طیاره بده در او صورت میتواند به غیر از او که آمریکایی این کار کنه گشنه ببانه و اردو را کمک نکنه و ماشین رسانه مثلا تمام تجهیزات از او را مکمل نتونه رسانده کجا میتونه
اردوی ملی طالبان را توسط جنگ از بین بردن نمیتونه طالبان مسئول بیاید قطعی اردوی ملی یک جای شود کل افغانستان با اتفاق یک جای به هم به یک دست شود طالبان از بین برده میتونه.
New recruits at the Kabul military training center on the second phase of their training. They're replacing the old AK-47s with new American M16s. Often they're taking the lead in operations, but according to the Afghan defense minister, they still lack the equipment needed to fight a rural and urban insurgency. Enough armoured vehicles, counter-IED technology, air reconnaissance capability.
The Afghan National Security Forces growth has been underfunded at the beginning for many years, almost up to 2006, and we have wasted the window of opportunity. Otherwise, at the moment, we could have been in a position that the drawdown of the international forces could have started.
Yet, Afghan forces have proven themselves time and again, including, contrary to popular perceptions, the police. It lags far behind the army in reform, but is now the focus of accelerated training and recruitment. More police than any other security force officers, foreign or Afghan, are killed by insurgents. Only together can the Afghan National Security Forces marry the battlefield and urban policing skills necessary to defeat insurgents and protect the population. In Kabul, ISAF has already passed authority to the ANSF.
Ce transfert sur la province de Kaboul n'a pas été prématuré. Il correspondait à une volonté politique afghane très forte, certes, mais sur le terrain, il y avait déjà des forces de sécurité à bon niveau. En nombre insuffisant, mais à bon niveau, ce qui a permis d'améliorer cette sécurité, malgré évidemment de temps en temps des événements comme ce que l'on a connu le 11 février avec des attaques sur des établissements officiels.
The police are perceived across the country as corrupt and as a force serving its own officers rather than as a service serving the people. Yet, as this video recorded by the Afghan National Police shows, its officers are perfectly capable of showing heroism in the field. Police reacted rapidly when insurgents besieged the Justice Ministry in Kabul, bringing civilians to safety while they dealt with the attackers.
Police is an essential part in this. NATO is very much engaged in supporting the Afghan National Security Forces. The bulk of our activity is support the Afghan National Army, but police is equally important. Once a district, an area has been cleaned, it is very important to hold this area. And to hold, it means to have good governance and good police people on the ground.
Germany and its officers are enthusiastic about a new program, focused district development, to train the police to standards comparable with the army. Officers have long questionnaires to assess capacity in dozens of areas of police interaction with the public that any force in the world could become involved in. The idea is that officers are taken out of their station for 8 weeks to training centres far from home and are replaced by already trained civil order police.
Was wir uns allerdings erhoffen mit dem Focus District Development Programm, das wir diesmal erstmalig durchführen von deutscher Seite, was wir uns erhoffen ist, dass wir ein Stück weit dazu beitragen können, die Polizei zu professionalisieren, dass sie einfach besser wird in dem, wie sie es tut und in dem, was sie tut. Und das ist das Ziel, was über allem steht mit dem FDD-Programm.
The programme seeks to at least partly address a wider crisis of confidence, which surveys consistently reveal is felt by the public in the capacity of the authorities to govern their lives.
Governance means to have a functional structure, to have effective structures, to have the involvement of the people in the decision making. It means everything. The real Afghanistan maybe starts outside Kabul. For me, governance is especially important at sub-national level, to make sure that in each of the 34 provinces of Afghanistan there are good governors, there are good people, there are good council. There is a feeling that everybody is contributing to the implementation of the overall national strategy.
The MP Mohammad Sultanzoy has been a tireless campaigner for better governance for years. He believes endemic corruption from the top will be hard to reverse.
That is the norm now. Corruption has in itself become a vehicle for more corruption, for more misappropriation, more misconduct. And one feeds the other. And we are basically creating an apparatus in the bureaucracy that is totally feeding itself from corruption and feeding others in the NGO community from this corruption. And unless we do something about this, unless we clean up this thing, we will have a banana republic here that will never be able to, in our lifetime, fix the problems that we want to fix.
Perhaps understandably, government ministers are less critical.
The impediments have always been the capacity. The capacity in Afghanistan, the technical managerial capacity have diminished during 30 years of warfare in this country.
Mr. Gentilini listens to the concerns of a group of women MPs. For them, governance and justice are critical issues. Why, they ask, do former warlords stained by 3 decades of conflict continue to enjoy impunity in Parliament and in society? More than a third of the 4.5 million new voters who who registered for this election are women. Afghans now have complete ownership of an electoral process which, it's hoped, will boost reform. Good governance applies to everyone, including the international forces operating in Afghanistan under the international laws of war. These are the latest refugees to arrive in Kabul from the conflict areas of the south, victims of war. Most are from Helmand, Uruzgan and Kandahar, like this family who arrived in 2009, after they were caught between insurgents and the British forces they were fighting in Sangin district in Helmand. We're victims of both the insurgents and NATO, this refugee complains. They come to our area and attack NATO. We can't stop them. If we try, they tell us we're spies. On the other side, foreign forces are bombing our villages. Again, we're the people who suffer. NATO has come under heavy criticism from Afghans over civilian casualties, from the president down. Yet the anger might well be directed elsewhere.
But we take every possible measure we can to try to avoid that, if necessary, even not attempting a particular target and coming back later if we think there's a risk of civilian casualties. Our data shows that over 80% of civilian casualties that occur in Afghanistan are caused by the insurgency.
So what does NATO do to prevent civilian casualties? This is the JOC, the Joint Operations Centre, at ISAF headquarters in Kabul. It's ISAF's multinational nerve centre. Here, every violent incident involving every foreign force or group is monitored, reported and investigated. Last year, the commander of ISAF issued a directive with new instructions to limit the risk to civilians.
We have two procedures. One is to achieve a positive identification of the area under which the fire is generating, and the second is a pattern of life. So we try and assure ourselves that the area is clear of civilians. But we have to understand that the insurgents use civilians to provide themselves some form of protection.
When there are potential civilian casualties from air or ground strikes, Colonel Mark Kelly is on the case fast to ascertain the exact circumstances. He testifies to the accuracy of weapons used by strike forces.
Although the exact accuracy of them is classified, I can tell you that in general, when we talk about how accurate the weapon can hit, we're talking in small numbers of meters. We're not talking miles or hundreds of yards or anything, but generally, you know, within a room-sized area is what we're talking about.
The final part of the equation is how those in the air feed details to inform any decision taken on the ground.
A lot of times we'll use the sniper pods to just relay to the ground commander that actually where you are, 500 metres from you, there's a lot of civilians and they're all leaving the village to the north, or just so that you're aware, around the next corner, 3 blocks down, there's quite a large group, and it looks like there's children amongst that group, and we keep them completely informed of that all the time, so that both us in the air and our friendly forces troops on the ground are aware with all the civilians are, even in the most dynamic of situations.
The issue has put ISAF at odds with just about everyone. Afghans, the UN, non-government organisations. Yet it carries out scrupulous investigations and defends its findings. The case that NATO is an honest, not a negligent, contributor to security in Afghanistan.
The minute a man walks into a meeting in full uniform, sometimes in the case of the Americans with a weapon strapped to their leg, there is an immediate wall between civilians and military. And many of my colleagues in the NGO community have prejudices, whether warranted or not, against anybody in uniform. They cannot believe that they could possibly be telling them the whole truth, even though the man in uniform or woman in uniform is telling them the truth as far as they personally know it.
The bleak and beautiful wastes of northern Afghanistan in winter. Here there is less insurgent activity to contend with. The Germans lead the Northern Regional Command and are often envied, sometimes criticised, for what many see as an unjustly quiet life. But the commander in charge argues there's no such thing in Afghanistan.
Der Norden ist genauso wie Gesamtafghanistan, der ist nicht einheitlich, sondern sie haben hier insgesamt 9 Provinzen, von im Westen Faryab bis zum Osten Badakhshan. Jede dieser Provinzen hat eine unterschiedliche Herausforderung. Wir haben Provinzen, in denen wir wirklich schon mit dem Aufbau begonnen haben. Wir haben andere, in denen im Wesentlichen Schmuggelaktivitäten durchgeführt werden, wo wir mit kriminellen Banden zu tun haben. Wir haben andere, in denen wir die Insurgents bekämpfen. Aber dass wir erfolgreich gewesen sind, liegt daran, dass wir tatsächlich es geschafft haben, in einzelnen Provinzen eine Voraussetzung zu schaffen, dass der wirtschaftliche Aufbau wieder vorangehen kann.
The German provincial reconstruction team in Faizabad oversees the finish to the foundations of a bridge being built 7 kilometres or so from the city. The bridge provides a valuable link socially and economically for the community here. It reflects an article of faith in ISAF and in the international community.
For this we need budget to continue and to have regular workers to train them and to continue with a good skilled levels, because when we have one project and after that when we stop the work, then we can't pay these skilled guys for the long time.
Once completed, the project will also serve as a lifesaver. Last year 9 people were killed trying to cross the river during its peak flow in early summer. Elsewhere across the north, provincial reconstruction teams are engaged in a variety of reconstruction projects, defined by the most pressing local needs. Here in a village near Mazar-e-Sharif, Swedish soldiers arrive to distribute school materials and discover a shared love for education, football and tea.
امنیت سرتاسری فعلا خصوصا در شمال حاکم است. برای فعلا راجع به تاثیر اولادا و معلمین ما که در مکاتب مثلا.
Such beliefs give motivation to those helping Afghans rebuild their society.
One of the most important things for security is for the children to be able to go to school today. Today we have 44.6% of the Afghan population is below the age of 16, and that is going to be the large future of Afghanistan. Reading makes a country great, and if the security is enough for the children to go to school, we have come a long way in our work.
Afghanistan ranks as one of the poorest and least developed countries in the world, falling close to many impoverished African countries in lack of access to healthcare, clean water, the capacity of its people to provide food for themselves during frequent drought. Here in Surobi Valley, the French are on a mission to win over the local population. Like Wazir, it has seen plenty of insurgent movement recently, as well as threat to the population. These forces are trying to win the confidence of people, and no better way than to treat the sick in an informal surgery. Most come to Gorp, but some come with illnesses and maladies. At the city centre shopping mall in Kabul, you could almost be forgiven for thinking you were somewhere in the Middle East for a second or so. But the truth is, the economic regeneration is happening in Afghanistan. Many people, like Majib Karimzada, even returned from a life in the UK.
I heard that the business is better now in Afghanistan and the situation is getting better.
A sentiment shared by Mahmoud Wali, a young travel agent.
The opportunity and facilities which we didn't had 10 or 7 years ago, that right now we have. The education is the best thing in the world, because education is the backbone of a country.
Education is regarded as the beacon success in Afghanistan. More than 7 million children now attend school. Just under a third of them are girls. Evidence, if it were needed, that a long-term development strategy more than proves its worth. Couple that to gradual but sure improvements in security, new rights for ISAF to intervene in the fight against poppy production, to economic regeneration and to the anti-corruption drive, and hope flickers. Ultimately, good governance and strong security in Afghanistan make for a safer world. It will take many years, but it will last. Most important of all, it will be owned and run by the people of Afghanistan themselves.